So when she found out that she was pregnant with me, she wanted to give up on me. And fortunately, at that time, I had a relative who was financially well off, I would say, and she encouraged my mom to keep this baby.
Yeah.
They knew
God
that it
bless
was
her.
going to be a baby girl,
Mhm.
and truth of the matter is, she tried all kinds of ways to let me go, but by the grace of God, I hung on to her.
Hi folks, it's Ron Strand. I'm here in the Upper Room studio today, a little bit unshaven, but I just wanted to take a second to introduce you to the interview you're about to see. I recently interviewed Belinda Lee. She is an author and she is a television host in Singapore. She's a wonderful Christian lady and she started her own nonprofit. But what's really interesting is she's got a great story. And I hope you enjoy watching this interview. Thanks. Belinda, welcome to Real Talk. We're glad you're here. You've got such a compelling story, an interesting story, an interesting journey of your life. You grew up, you were born in Singapore. Tell the folks a little bit about Singapore, because it's one of those countries, we know it's in Asia, we know that it's a prosperous country, but tell us a little bit about it.
Well, Singapore we call it the little red dot because it's so tiny.
Yeah.
You don't even see it on the world map.
Right.
That's how tiny Singapore
right?
is. But it is a country and it's not part of China. Because I
Right.
do have a lot of people asking me, is Singapore part of China? No. Singapore is an independent country.
Yes.
Like what you said, it's a very prosperous country.
Yes.
In fact, it is a first world country.
Yes.
And it took us about 50 over years to be where we are today. Still a very young country.
Right.
But Singapore is a place where education is highly valued.
Right.
And the economy is great over there as well. So I am very privileged
Yes.
to be a Singaporean,
Yeah.
to be a true blue Singaporean, and to be born in Singapore.
Yeah.
And so I have a lot to be thankful for. To be frank.
Indeed.
And it's very safe there as well.
Right.
Low crime doesn't mean no crime. We still do
Right.
have crimes, but I would say compared to many, many places around the world,
Yes.
it is a very safe place to live in,
Yes.
for a woman especially.
Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Well,
I can
that's
go to
good.
the movies on my own. I can walk on the streets in the middle of the night with no problems
No
at all.
kidding.
And
You can't even say that about here.
I know, right? I know. So that's why I'm always very grateful. Every time I travel around the world, I see what's happening out there and I go back to my own country, Ron.
Yeah.
I always say, God, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for giving me that opportunity to be born in Singapore and call this my home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very tropical. You're only a couple hundred miles from the equator, right?
Yeah. We are right smack on the line of the equator.
Yeah.
So it's a very tropical country. It's
Right.
hot all year round.
All year.
round.
So
But
you come here to get a little bit of the rain. Well, we're getting
coolness.
rain right now.
It's very rainy right now. So the
Yeah.
weather is different, but
Yeah.
on the whole, it's still a really lovely place to live in.
Yeah. You're born in Singapore, but your beginnings weren't all that happy, were they?
No, not really.
You were born to a mother that didn't really want you. Is that?
Yeah, Ron, I have to be very frank with you. Usually when I talk about my growing up years, my childhood, I have to be extremely mindful with my words. A few years ago, I needed to be mindful because my mom was still around. She was still alive. Even though she's no longer here, I still need to honor her name,
Sure.
and take care and protect the family's reputation. So I have to say that when I feel that sense of unwantedness, that sense of rejection and abandonment, it was all in my head and how I felt when I was a child.
Right.
But it was true that the moment my mom found out that she was pregnant with me, she already had two other kids, my sister, my eldest sister, and my elder brother, and I'm the youngest. She didn't have much. With my dad, they were financially not very sound. So to have one extra mouth to feed, it was a little too much.
Right.
So when she found out that she was pregnant with me, she wanted to give up on me. And fortunately, at that time, I had a relative who was financially well off, I would say, and she encouraged my mom to keep this baby.
Yeah.
They knew
God
that it was
bless her.
going to be a baby girl,
Mhm.
and truth of the matter is, she tried all kinds of ways to let me go, but by the grace of God, I hung on to her in her womb.
To your aunt, you mean, or your?
To when I was still in my mom's womb.
Oh yeah. Okay, I get you.
You know,
Okay.
my mom,
Yes.
she was very determined to give me up.
Yes.
Not because she never loved me.
No, I get
but
it.
it's because they didn't have the means.
Right. Those are realities of coming in a poor environment.
Exactly.
Poor,
And they didn't even have much money to go to the doctors
Yeah.
for, the real procedure of letting go of a baby.
Right.
So she tried her own traditional methods, unconventional methods, and still I hung on to her in her womb and not want to let go. And it says a lot.
Yes.
So I would say even when I was a fetus, I was a baby in her womb, I was a fighter.
Well, God says, even He knows us even in your mother's womb, and He had a plan and purpose for your life.
Yeah,
And so
but I never knew that.
You didn't know that at the
I
time.
didn't know that at that time, and my mom did not know God at that time.
Yeah.
So it was a miracle that I survived. And my auntie said, "Why don't you just keep her? I will adopt her, and I'll take good care of her."
Yeah.
So I was born, and the moment I was born, I was taken away. I was given to my auntie, who was supposed to be my adopted mother.
Yes.
And I was told I was very rebellious. I was a crybaby. I was very difficult.
Were you?
So that was what they told me. And when I was about 3 to 4 years old, it was time to, unfortunately, I think I was a little bit too difficult to handle. My auntie, my adopted mother at that time, had to make a decision. So she called my mom and dad and gave them two options. She said, "I can't handle her anymore. So there are only two options. One, I sell her to a different family, or two, you take her home."
Wow.
So my dad, he was poor, he didn't have much, but he still chose to keep me. He
Oh,
said,
wow.
"Bring her home.
Yeah.
We can't just let her go somewhere."
Yes.
So
And you were 4 or 5 years old at this point.
I was about 3 to 4.
Yeah.
So I was asked to pack up my bags, and I went home. At that time, I didn't know who my parents were,
Right. Yeah.
where home was. And because I told you my parents, they had to work very, very hard.
Yes.
They didn't have the capacity and time to take care of all their 3 children. So I was always moving from house to house,
Yeah.
from one relative's home to another. So if you asked me when I was a young child, where was home for me? Who was I? Who
Yeah.
my parents were? I had no answers. All I knew was I felt like a nomad.
Did you really?
I did. Because of that, I developed an orphan's heart at a very young age.
Right.
Thinking to myself, why am I here?
Yeah.
When it's so clear to me, nobody wanted me.
Yeah.
But that was all in my head.
Right.
Because I didn't understand. I did not have the maturity to understand what poverty was about. I
Right.
did not understand that when if you want to, survive, you need to work.
Yes. Right.
So that explained why I grew up a little messed up in my head, in my heart as well, especially always wondering who I was, in the eyes of my family, in the eyes of people. So I grew up with very, very low self-esteem.
Yeah. So you felt less than. I mean, you felt like you didn't really fit into your auntie's home. You go back to your mother and
parents.
father's home, and yet they're working, and you're kind of being moved around because of economic conditions and so forth. So I mean that does something to the psyche of a young person. I mean, those are formative years,
It
and
did.
so you end up with this self-image issue and feeling like, why am I here?
Yeah, because I was constantly being told,
Yeah.
we never wanted you.
Right. Right.
You're good for nothing. You're not good enough. You'll never succeed in life.
Yeah.
You're a failure. You're born to fail.
Wow.
Now, Ron, I know this might come as a shock in your culture in the U.S., but it was pretty common in the Asian culture.
Was it?
I grew up in a very traditional, very conventional Chinese family where the way to motivate a child is to talk down to the child.
Oh,
The
really?
way to push them is to tell them the opposite of of what they're capable of doing. So
Yeah.
instead of telling, children, oh, you're great, you're worthy, you will succeed in life, you're awesome.
Yeah.
No, the way to push us to be successful one day is to tell us that we're not good enough, so that we will have that drive to
Yeah.
push ourselves to become better in the future. Now, that's a cultural difference. So I
Right.
never blamed it on my parents. Of course, when I was young, I wondered why,
Right.
But of course, when I grew up and when I became more mature, I realized that, it wasn't just about my parents. It happened to a lot of the Asian families that I knew around me. That was their way of bringing up their children. So I
Right.
wasn't alone
Yeah. Yeah.
in this. Yeah.
Did that make you feel like you needed acceptance in other places? Did you, because you didn't feel that acceptance there? And what did that do to you as a young girl? I mean, you're going into adolescent age and then preteen and so forth. How did that play out for you?
Yes, I think not having that sense of belonging, it really caused a huge void in my heart, Ron, because I did not know who I was.
Yeah.
And I constantly questioned myself. Why am I here when nobody wanted me?
Yeah.
Why am I here when my very existence did not matter to anyone?
Right.
It was painful. As a
Right.
child, living with a lot of insecurities, it was miserable, because it did not only happen at home, but it happened everywhere I went, whether it was school or whether it was workplace. I think it was very much, now that I've come to understand a lot of things in life, I realized that my very low self-esteem, the way I looked at myself, was mirrored with the way other people treated me.
Yeah. Right.
You know where I'm coming
Sure.
from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I felt unworthy. I gave people the permission to mistreat me.
You felt like that's all you deserved.
I felt that was all I deserved.
Yeah.
I deserved to be called names. I deserved to be blamed for everything. I deserved to live a life of misery. That was what was planted in my head and my spirit and my heart, that Belinda, if something goes wrong, it's your problem.
Wow.
So you have to just suck it up and continue to live life. That was how I grew up.
Yeah. So this is your early years, obviously. Now you're growing into preteen, teenage years. Did you become rebellious? Did you ever do anything rebellious? I mean, I know drugs in Singapore is it's
Yeah,
pretty heavy punishment.
Yeah, you go straight to jail, or it's death sentence.
So, did you rebel? Did you just kind of become a wallflower? Did you kind of just how did that affect you? Because now you're coming into formative years.
Yes.
And as a teenager or a young preteen, you're really starting to develop your life's persona, I guess you'd say. How were you at that point? I mean, you were in school and you felt like you.
I was I was basically an outcast.
Yeah.
I was called a black sheep
Were you?
in the school team.
Really?
Because, you see, like I told you, my family did not have much. So it also meant that in terms of my appearance, in terms of the things that I wore to school, my school uniform, they were never a new set of uniform. I had to wear my uniforms till they turned to a different tone, a different shade of blue, from a sky blue to a very dull-looking grayish blue.
Yeah.
A white blouse would turn into like a yellowish
Right.
white blouse, and my shoes had holes in them. So I definitely looked very, very shabby,
Yeah. So you stuck out.
big time.
Yeah. And others took advantage of that.
Yes, in a way, I think people were very unkind. It was very unfortunate that I was judged based on how I looked in school.
Sure.
My grades were not great.
Yeah.
My grades were really bad, and I did not look, pristine enough. I did not look tidy enough. So it's very natural for people to be unkind.
Yeah.
So I was never involved with any school performances when I
Yes.
was in school, because I was told that I wasn't talented enough to be a part of the team, to be a part of those performances. I wasn't good looking enough to represent, my class. And even the teachers were telling me that I was better off at the background because I was just not good enough.
You just didn't measure up. And so that just bolsters your already perspective of yourself, your perception of yourself.
Yeah. So the yearning for acceptance was very real in my life.
Right.
But you see, when you grow up in an environment where everywhere you go, you are being told that you're not good enough, and even though in my heart I was yearning for love, for acceptance, for security, and I never had it from anybody, it did come to a point that I completely lost hope.
Really?
Yes, lost hope in trying to find acceptance.
Really?
Yeah.
At what age are you talking?
Even up to my 20s.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so I want to unpack some of that. This is where I find it very, very interesting because you go from this person of, in your mind, almost obscurity because they're, almost being invisible because of your self-image and the way others treated you and so forth. Before I say this, let me say, I know this isn't your identity, but these are some of the accomplishments and things that resulted in your life that are kind of juxtapositioned against the way you grew up. Because I'm going to read a little bit about some of the things, and these are some of the shows that Belinda she was the first MTV VJ in Asia. Is that correct?
In Singapore. Yeah.
And you won awards for that television show. You were in a show called Show Me the Money. You were a host on a show called Come and Dance with Me. Renovate is another one. The Place We Live. Find Me a Singaporean, and you won an award in that one.
Yeah.
And then you got into acting. So the reason I read those things is because here's this person who's got this poor self-image, and now you're bolstered into the public life, into this position where you're in front of a camera. Where people now are looking to you, because there is, like it or not, being a public person, being a celebrity, people are looking to you and looking up to you. Talk about that transition, because you go from this point of just having this poor self-image now to having this celebrity.
Being thrown into the public eye made things worse, to be frank.
Did it
Ron.
really? Wow, yeah.
Especially when you are, first of all, I'm a girl.
Yeah.
And I grew up with low self-esteem,
Yeah.
and I always call it no self-esteem, not
Yeah.
even low, but no
Right.
self-esteem. And to be thrown into the entertainment industry, Ron, it's so extreme.
Yes.
It made it worse because my very being, my very existence became very visible to the media,
Right.
to the world. And when you have such great exposure, it also means that I am inviting a lot more negative voices into my
sure.
life.
Yeah.
I had a lot of love and support, a lot of fans and all that. Great. But at the same time, there was also another voice that was constantly driving me down.
Yeah.
Did
you feel like an imposter? Like, well, they don't even know who I really am. I mean, what am I doing in this position?
Yeah, there were many, many times, Ron, I asked myself, why am I in the entertainment industry? I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to be a public figure. I have never been ready.
Yeah.
But why was I being thrown into that position? It was simply because I am truly passionate about the arts. I am truly passionate about interviewing people.
Yeah.
I am truly passionate about the beauty that I see when I travel around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that people saw on the facade, on the inside, was this girl with so much spark and energy. But nobody truly knew who I was on the inside.
Right.
Everybody expects every celebrity to be a tough cookie. But in actuality, We are not, Ron.
I would assume that that's probably very true in a lot of celebrities.
We are, in fact,
sometimes they're the most insecure people. Right?
insecure, most vulnerable people you will ever meet in your
Right.
life, you know?
Yeah.
So we're just another human being who just yearns to be loved and accepted by everyone else.
Yeah.
We're no different from you and anyone else on the
Right.
streets.
Right.
You know, but it was hard for us to share that with people because they would never understand.
Yes.
And for me, yes, so it was I was very much like a rubber band that I felt like I was being stretched from one end
Wow.
to the other
Yeah.
end. And it was just a matter of time that the rubber band would be stretched to a point that it will just snap.
Yeah.
And it did snap.
It did snap. And
It
I
did
want to get
snap.
into that. But
Yeah.
let's go back just a little bit because
Yes.
this is the part that really amazes me. Going from being this person of poor self-worth, self-image, and so forth, to auditioning for MTV host position. What brought you to that point where you felt confident enough to go do that? And then winning out of how many?
1,000 over people.
Yeah, it's
How
amazing.
did that happen?
Yeah.
Ron? I don't know.
You don't, I mean, what compelled you to say, because you're walking around with this image that's like, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, but yet I'm going to go audition for this.
It wasn't because I wanted to go for the audition, Ron.
Yeah.
It was because somebody believed in me. All it took was that one person who believed in me. And that was my first love. He was my first boyfriend.
Was it?
And he knew I was such a big fan of MTV.
Yeah.
And we, back in Singapore, in those days, we didn't have, no cable. There was nothing.
Yeah.
But MTV was always showing on every Saturday,
Right.
every Saturday midnight, where I would just be sitting right in front of my TV box and just watching the MTV Top 10 countdown,
Right.
the most wanted shows and all that. I was watching it because I was such a huge fan of, like I told you, creativity, arts, music, you know. That was such a big thrill for me. Every weekend, I was a sad girl. But when it hits the weekend at 12 midnight, I turn into a completely different person.
Really?
I found my joy
Yeah.
watching those music videos.
Wow.
But I've never aspired to be an MTV VJ because of my low self-esteem. I just felt like I would never be chosen. No matter how much I wanted to do what they did, I knew I didn't have what it took.
Yeah.
That was what I thought to myself. So I was, I was seeing a boy, and for some strange reason, he saw something in me, and he said, "Sweetheart, there is an audition for MTV, and I think you have what it takes." And I bust out laughing. I said, "You must be joking, right?" No, I love MTV. Don't get me wrong. I love it, but no, I'm not made to do this.
Yeah.
Because I'm not good enough.
Yeah. But he saw something in you.
And he said, "No, I believe in you."
Wow.
I tell you what, can I fill up the application form for you? I have some of your pictures. Can I fill it up? Can I send it to MTV? And let's see what happens.
Wow.
So he said that at that time, the application form was only available at 3 locations around Singapore. Only 3 locations. And in that one day, he just kept seeing those application forms in all 3 locations. Not intentionally, it just happened. So to him, it was a sign that, "Belinda, you need to do this because I keep seeing the application form right before my eyes."
Yeah.
So he picked it up, filled it up for me, sent it to MTV. At that time, I was doing a little bit of a part-time entertainment job, like a little bit of hosting here, a little bit of dancing there, just odd jobs.
Right.
And I was working in factories and bakeries. You just name it. I've done all kinds
done
of
it all.
odd jobs, done it all. And I had to do, like I told you, part-time hosting. And somebody said, somebody who was connected to MTV said, "Hey, MTV, I have this girl. I know this girl. Her name is Belinda. I was told that her form is in this whole stash of application form. So would you mind just looking through those forms and try to see if you think she's got what it takes?"
Wow.
And they found my form through, I think there were 1,000 over applicants.
Okay.
So it was hard to find my form, but they eventually found it. They thought I was cute, gave me a phone call, had a chat with me. And before I knew it, I was in the semifinals and then to the finals. And then from there, they picked me
No kidding.
as an MTV VJ. How did all that happen, Ron? Once again, I don't know. So when I asked why me, they
Yeah.
said, that's because, Belinda, we tell you why you. First of all, you're fresh blood.
Yeah.
We've never seen your face on in MTV.
Right.
So you're very fresh and you're very refreshing in our eyes. Plus, you have a very infectious laughter.
Yeah.
And that makes us think that you're unique, you're different. MTV was all about being unique, right?
Yeah.
So, and they saw that part of me that they thought was very, very valuable.
Right.
And they signed me on. But Ron, you know something? When I won that contract, I did not know that I won a contract with MTV as a VJ. I thought I was going to win some shopping vouchers and a trip to Indonesia for a nice holiday.
That's
and
all
that
you
was
thought
it.
you were going to get out of it, right? Little did you know it was going to be a 5-year.
I didn't know that it
yeah.
was going to be a 4.5 years stint with them. I
Yeah.
did not know that I was going to be paid a
Right.
monthly salary to do, to be an MTV VJ.
Sure, yeah.
So that to me came as a huge surprise.
Yeah.
Just when I thought that I was not worthy enough to be on a platform, on an international platform, I know that there was a voice up there that very clearly showed it to me. Belinda, you are worthy.
Yeah.
At that time, I did not know God. So he made use of my boyfriend at that time to just speak right into my heart that, Belinda, I have a plan for you.
Wow.
And you are worthy. It doesn't matter how you think. It doesn't matter how you look at yourself and what you think about yourself. It's what I think of you.
Yeah.
It's how I look at you.
Right.
I never knew. I never knew till I became a Christian.
Yes. Was that boyfriend, was he a Christian? But God used him to bring you to that point.
And all it took was just that one person who believed in me.
Yeah.
And that's why, Ron, for me to do this interview is extremely precious to me, because I know there will be all kinds of people watching your show, your program. And I know there are many, many broken hearts out there.
Sure.
Many people who think that they're unworthy, and they probably are living a life of hopelessness.
Yes.
They think that they will never amount to anything in life. But I just want to say it's pretty amazing how just when you think that you will never arrive, you never matter to anyone, the Lord will show it to you. At least he showed it to me through the people around me, especially that first boyfriend, that I am worthy. I was born into this world for a very, very precious reason.
Yes.
And instead of focusing on my unworthiness, my low self-esteem, and my low self-image, instead of focusing on that, it was very, very clear to me as I became a Christian and I became more and more mature in my faith. I realized that, oh, wow, the reason why I had to go through what I had to go through when I was a child is so that I have a message to share with the world right now.
Right.
That the Lord, whether I knew him or not at that time, has never left me nor forsaken me.
Yes, indeed.
That I was wonderfully and fearfully made in his image. That I am the apple of his eyes. That my very name is engraved on the very palm of his hands. And all those beautiful words that came from the Bible, they are living words in my life. Simply because all it took was for God to send a messenger into my life to tell me, Belinda, you are worthy.
Yeah.
And I believe in you.
Yes.
So that's my message to the listeners out there, to the audience out there. It doesn't really matter where you are in life right now.
Yeah.
It's painful.
Yeah.
If you are feeling the way I felt when I was a child. In fact, sometimes I still feel extremely broken. I'm still a very broken
Well, yeah,
vessel.
I think we struggle with those things our whole life.
work in progress.
Sure.
All of us are. We're
Right.
not perfect. But it's not about focusing on my imperfections, but it's truly about focusing on a perfect God,
Yeah.
a Father who in his due time made everything perfect for me.
Yeah.
And I think this is the most precious lesson I've ever learned so far.
So, Belinda, you go through this journey. Somebody believes in you, your boyfriend. It starts realizing that something's churning in you. I don't know what the religious situation is in Singapore. Is there much faith there? Is it Buddhist? Is it
I think we have all kinds of
just international?
faiths out there,
Yeah.
religions out there. In fact, I was born in a temple.
Oh, were you?
So I came from a Taoist background.
Oh, why?
You know, you have Buddhism, you have Hinduism, you
Yeah.
have Taoism, you have the Christian faith, you have
Sure.
Catholicism, all kinds of, religions out there.
So you could have, sought faith in any of those things, but what drew you to Jesus? What drew you to a point of faith where you surrendered your life to Jesus?
I have always known, because I grew up in a temple. I told you my adopted mom at that time, she owned a temple. So I literally grew up in a very spiritual atmosphere
Yeah. Yeah.
where spirits were very real in my
Right.
life, And so I've always known that there was a higher power,
Yeah.
but I just never knew who he was.
Right.
And like I told you, I had very poor grades in school. I was constantly bullied, and ostracized by schoolmates and teachers and, the people around me. But in my heart, I've always known there was something that was protecting me.
Yeah.
There was I felt like there was a little bubble that was just surrounding me. But I just never knew how to give it a name.
Right.
Of course, I never knew that was God.
Yeah.
I never knew that was Jesus.
Right.
So going from one mess to another, or going from one challenge to another, that constant questioning was very real, and that constant search for that greater purpose in my life was very real. And who is that greater, higher power that has always just protected me from the dangers, from the harms? I just knew that there was that something. Now, all kinds of people would introduce all kinds of things to me,
Yeah.
Like I told you, I grew up a Taoist. I would be going to temples. There'll be fortune telling. There'll be cards. There'll be all kinds of ritualistic things that would
Sure.
happen around my life
Yeah.
and in my life, because I was searching for peace.
Yes.
I was searching for answers. I was just constantly searching.
Yes.
And even when I found answers in some of the rituals that I went through, and the gods that were being introduced to me, the sense of comfort and peace was temporary. In fact, there were times there was more fear that was being introduced to me, because in some of these Asian traditions or religious practice, they always believe in one thing: you got to do a lot of good. You
Right.
got to do more good deeds
Yeah.
in order to
To
live
overcome
a better life,
Yeah.
to have enlightenment, and to have more blessings in your life. So the more blessings one gets attributes to how much or how many good deeds they have done before
Right.
that.
Right.
It was a cultural thing.
Yes.
And I was sucked into that.
Were you?
It was scary, because I wondered to myself, what was enough? What
Yeah.
was considered enough?
Right.
What kind of good deeds, and how many good deeds did I need to do in order for that higher power to say, oh, you are worthy and I will bless you.
Yeah.
So I was constantly in that vicious cycle of thinking to myself, I need to be good, I need to be good, I need to do good in order to earn credits, or merits
Yeah.
from these different gods that
Yeah.
I was being introduced to. It was miserable.
Yeah, it's miserable because you can never attain that.
Because
Never
I am
attain
not
it.
God. I'm
Right.
not a saint,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So I had those questions about why God is a God that constantly wanted so much out of me. Like, it's never enough.
Yeah.
So it came to a point that, of course, I went to a Catholic school, and then when I went to MTV, I was introduced to Donita Rose,
Sure.
who's a very, very dear friend of mine.
Yes.
And Donita is a lover of God.
Yes,
She
yes.
loves God with all her heart.
Sure.
And she was constantly telling me how good her father was, how good God is, how amazing Jesus is.
Yeah.
It's not just God, but Jesus. And every time I had a failed relationship, I would go to Donita and cry and say, "Dude, I'm so heartbroken. I feel like there is a void in my heart, that there is an emptiness in my heart, and I don't know what to do about it."
Yeah.
And she and Donita, with a beautiful, gentle, loving voice, would always say this to me: "Belle, the only person who can fill that void in your heart is Jesus Christ." And I said, "Yeah, right."
Yeah, right.
But Donita never gave up on me. She continued to pray for me. She continued to invite me to church. She continued to introduce me to all her pastor friends,
Yes.
her Christian friends. She never gave up on me.
Yes.
I think she is one of the biggest reasons why I am where I am today.
Yeah.
And along the way I met other Christian ladies who believed in me as well.
Yeah.
And they answered the stupidest questions that I had about the Bible, about God, about Jesus. One of them patiently befriended me and stood by me and answered all these questions. To be
Okay.
honest, 90% of the time I did not know what she was talking about.
Yeah. Did you? Is that right?
Yeah, because it was very theological, but I saw the heart of God in her.
Sure.
I saw the love of Christ in that girlfriend.
Right.
I saw the love of Christ in Donita.
Yeah.
These people who never gave up on me.
Yeah.
And that's slowly but surely, Donita invited me once again to church. And there was that one voice. I knew when it came to altar call. Before altar call happened, the night before, I had a dream. Ron, I had a very strange dream. I dreamt that I woke up and there was that, like a VHS tape, like a beta tape
Sure.
that was kind of rewind. It was my life that was rewind all the way
Interesting.
to the beginning of my life.
Yeah.
And during that whole reversal, procedure, I saw Donita in it. I heard words, God, Jesus, faith, and all that. It was a quick rewind of my life to remind me how far I have come and how God has always been there for me.
Interesting.
And I woke up. I called Dee and I said, "Dee, I want to go to church with you. Can I come?" She said, "Of course," right? She was so excited.
Sure.
And when altar call came, I knew it was time to say the sinner's prayer. But my head said no. My
Really?
heart said yes. My heart said no.
Yeah.
Belle, run.
Right.
So I took up my bags and I wanted to run. Donita was on my right. She was on my side and she grabbed me by the arm. She said, "Belle, where are you going?" I said, "I have to work." She said, "No, it's not work time. No, you wait." And the pastor's wife turned around right in front of me and grabbed me by the other arm and said, "Belinda, your time is here." I'm like, "What time? What are you talking about?" They said, "The time to give your heart and your life to Jesus." And I said, "No, I have no time. I have to go to work. I'll be late." They said, "All we need is just 1 minute of your time. 1 minute of your time to say the sinner's prayer, and then you can go."
Yeah.
So as a people pleaser, right, at that time, I kind of gave in. I obliged. I said the sinner's prayer, and I ran off.
Did you?
And I thought it was just words, just merely words. Ron, I was so wrong. They were not just words.
Yeah. God takes you at your word, right?
It was a confession.
Yeah.
And I think it took a lot of courage. Yes, I was being kind of, forced to say it like right now, even though my head said I wasn't ready. But I knew in the very depths of my spirit,
Yeah.
I was ready to be called his child.
Right. Right.
But I was in denial because I felt that I was not good enough to be called
Well,
his princess.
there comes that
that whole thing again. And, you know,
Yes.
the spirit wars against the flesh wars against the spirit.
Yes.
What you're feeling in your heart, but your head's saying, you know, I don't want this. But the pastor's wife and Donita saw that struggle that was going on within
Yeah.
you and had presence of mind to say, no, go forward. And, you know, God takes you at your word, and he hears your heart. You know, he knows that you're struggling in the flesh, and he knows you're struggling in your head, but he hears your heart.
Yeah.
And when you ask him to come in, he comes in and he changes your life, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, I have to also say this to you, Ron. It's not a bed of roses. So I don't
course
ever
not.
want the people around me, listeners, audience, the viewers, to ever think that just because we give our hearts to the Lord, that means life will be perfect. No, it's far from being perfect.
That's right.
There'll be a lot more challenges. There'll be a lot more criticisms. You know, there'll be a lot more to face in
Yes.
life. But what makes the difference between, you know, being a Christian and not, and being a pre-believer, is that I have that strength to help me to carry on
Yes.
when I feel that I don't have the strength
Right.
to do so on my own. And that's why it's so powerful, because when you become a Christian, when I became a Christian, I wasn't alone. I was marrying not just to the Lord, but I was marrying myself into the body of Christ.
Yeah.
Where I had the support of Donita and a lot of these amazing Christian sisters and brothers who stood by me, who prayed for me, who delivered me from the evil one, and who just never gave up on me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that all Christians are perfect people. We do have our fair share of disappointments
Of
as
course.
well. But that's also a place where I learned that men will disappoint,
Mm-hmm.
but never God.
Yeah.
So when I face challenges where I get criticisms again and I hear those noises again,
Mm-hmm.
I have to be very, very certain that these voices are not from the Lord.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm holding on to, Ron,
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
You know, before I came to meet you today, Ron, we had a few brief exchanges.
Sure.
Never really had a chance to talk.
Yeah.
And Ron, I don't know if anyone has ever told you this before. You have a certain presence about you.
Thank you.
Sometimes, for somebody like me, it does come across as intimidating.
Oh, really?
Yes. What am I going to talk about with you? Am I good enough for your show? Am I going to be relevant? And is my message going to be able to transform hearts and touch the brokenhearted?
Yeah.
Those voices, they continue to come, attack me, and make me question
Yeah.
about my very own relevance,
Yeah.
my very own sense of value.
Yeah.
But I continue to just close my eyes and tell myself, by faith, Belinda, you come.
Yeah.
It was pouring outside today. There were a million reasons for me to say, Ron, I'm not feeling
Yeah,
well, which
right.
was true. This
Sure.
morning I woke up not feeling too great, and it was pouring outside. There were many reasons for me to say, Ron, I'm sorry, I don't think I can do this.
Yeah.
I could find excuses. But is that what
Yeah.
would honor God? I don't think so.
Well, I'm glad that you fought those voices and that you came here today.
And I'm just so glad I'm here today, Ron, because I know that there is something very important that needs to be shared out there.
Yes.
You know, so it's no longer about me.
Yeah.
It's no longer about Ron.
Yeah.
It's about glorifying him
Yeah.
and honoring his name.
Yeah. It says something in the book of Revelations about the power of the testimony of the saints. And every believer, whether it's a dramatic conversion to Christ or just a gradual, everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a testimony. And each of those testimonies tell a story and can relate to somebody else. And so your story today is relating to somebody that's watching. I thank you for sharing it and being vulnerable and taking the step, because I know there's, the flesh is always warring against the spirit, isn't it? I don't want to get up and do this, but I know this is what God wants for me to do. And he always honors it.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. And so I did want to add this on. I know I've met your husband, David. God brought a wonderful man into your life a little over 3 years ago.
3 years
You
of
guys have been
marriage,
married 3 years. American man.
Yeah.
And you guys are in the States right now visiting his family
Yes.
right after the holidays here. And so I thank you for coming in today and sharing.
No, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ron, for having me. And God bless your beautiful heart.
Well, thank you. And you too. So, folks, the book that Belinda wrote is called Larger Than Life. And is this on Amazon and all the regular platforms?
It is on Amazon. It is on Amazon. And I believe they can get it from Amazon. It's just that because I'm based in Singapore,
Yeah.
so most of the time when people want to buy those books, they just go straight to the bookstores.
Yeah.
So, but I found out that, you do have access to the book.
Okay, good. And this is a great read. It's not about Belinda.
No.
It's about the things that she's done and the people, the humanitarian things that she's done in terms of meeting different people throughout the world. It's an incredible read. A lot of great photos in this book and great stories. Get a hold of it. It is in English. I know this for the American readers. It's
Yeah.
an English version. And
Yeah,
so-
Ron, I just wanted to say this book is also connected to this really clear message that the Lord has impressed in my heart.
Yeah.
Quite a few years ago when I was, working on a project called Renovate, where I had to renovate the homes
Yeah.
of the poor and needy. So I had to constantly get down and dirty to clean their homes. So
Yeah.
there was one day I was scrubbing the bathroom, a very filthy bathroom, and then I literally felt the impression from the Lord. He said to me, he said, Belinda, I know that you have never wanted to be a host because you're afraid. You never felt that you're good enough and all that. But I've always pushed you towards doing more presenting than acting. It's simply because I want to equip you to be a mouthpiece
Yeah.
for me, to be a voice for me, to be a voice for the voiceless,
Yeah.
the depressed, the brokenhearted, the hurting, the not good enough.
Right.
I want you to be that message of hope
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
At that time, I broke down and I wept like a baby. And I got out of that filthy bathroom with a completely changed perspective.
Isn't that amazing? God
that-
spoke to you through
And that's
through
when I
cleaning in the
knew-
bathroom.
Yeah, I know. And that's when the book came.
Yeah.
And this is where I am right now, to
Wonderful.
continue to bring his message of hope and encouragement to people.
Belinda Lee is an incredible person, and look her up, look up the book. And for those of you who are watching, who may be struggling with some of the same things that Belinda struggled, there's hope. There's hope out there, and the hope is in Jesus Christ. And we'd love to help you find that faith. If you're struggling, if you had some of those things, we'd love to talk to you about what it means to become a believer in Christ, to become a Christian. Reach out to us at prayer@theupperroompresents.com. That's prayer@theupperroompresents.com. You don't have to wait to reach out to us to become a Christian. You could say a simple prayer in your life, and it's just a prayer of surrender. Lord, I give you my life. I receive you, Jesus, as my Lord and Savior. Jesus says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone opens that door, I will come in and be with him and he with me. And as Belinda was saying, God is good at his word. If you make that prayer, say that prayer, God will make you a new creature. So reach out to us and let us know, or if anything that we can help you with, we'd love to. Prayer@theupperroompresents. Belinda, thank you so much for being with
Thank
us.
you so much, Ron. One thing to
Sure.
add as I'm looking into this camera,
Yeah.
for those of you who are still struggling, should I not? You know what? Just one thing, if there's one thing that you can remember from this interview, remember that surrender takes you wherever you want to go. Surrender takes you wherever you want to go. So the moment you surrender your life, God will take you to places that you can never ever imagine that you will go, but he will take you there if it is according to his will. So all the best to you, and God bless your heart too.
Amen. Bless you. And folks, thanks for watching. God bless you. See you next time.